Well, we're here to chat about Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. So, Lachlan Jobbins, what did you think?
I loved it.
You loved it?
I finished it yesterday afternoon and I wanted to start again and read it all over again. I loved it.
I've got to say I'm surprised that you loved it, Lockie, but we'll
Well,
find out why
we'll
in a
get there.
sec. We'll get there. Kelly Doust, what did you think?
I loved it as well. I read it on holiday and it was the best possible read on a holiday trip by the pool. It was fantastic.
It's an easy read. I've got to say, I didn't love it as much as you both have loved it. I don't think. And I'm probably most people, 99.999% of people, and our community in particular, have loved it. I found it a real page turner, but I was a little bit disappointed with how everything was tied up so neatly at the end. But anyway,
Okay, we'll get there.
we'll get there. Let's start with characters.
Okay, well, no. Why don't we outline what it's about first?
Okay.
And this is going to be difficult to do without spoilers.
Okay, well that's fine. There'll be spoilers.
Okay.
You start.
All right. So it's Big Little Lies. It's set in a suburban Sydney
Yeah.
primary school on the peninsula.
Yes.
A serious event happens at the night of the kindergarten
Trivia
night.
Yeah.
Something has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Rewind 6 months and you see a number of parents bringing their children to the school for the first day of orientation, and the story goes from there.
Yeah, and I think that's where the problem lies for me. Perhaps because I don't have school-age children, I really couldn't relate to some of the bad behaviour of some of those parents. But let's go over to you, Kelly. What was it that was so compelling in that scenario that you liked? Was it her writing style or the storyline, or how did you connect with that?
I thought the characters were very familiar.
Yeah.
And I think that they translate, even though it's a very Sydney story, I think it would translate to almost any primary school.
Yeah. It's a universal story without a doubt. It's a universal story about parenting and being a helicopter parent, I think. Would you agree with that?
I'd agree partly. I think that anyone who's had a child go through kindergarten, and I know you have, Kelly, and I've got a boy in kindergarten at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who has a child who's been through that will recognise some of the experiences. What blew me away about it as a reader was that you know that something serious has happened at the beginning. You know that I think you know that somebody has died.
Yeah, you know that very early on.
But you don't know who, you don't know why, you don't know what led up to it. And you have to read 450 pages until you find out who it is. And literally right up until then, you're guessing.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, as I said, it was the kind of book that you get to the end and it's so devastating that you want to go back and go,
really? Was it so devastating at the end? I wasn't devastated.
I wasn't devastated. I was actually thrilled with who we found out who had died.
Okay, we will get there. So there are spoilers in this book club, yes.
But that sort of Greek chorus, there's a whole group of people, all these other characters from the school, not just the main characters in the book, that are featured at little intervals throughout, like the principal of the school and the detective who's investigating this happening. And it's just really interesting. It's very interesting hearing their little comments along the way. And I agree with you, Lachlan. When I got to the end and I found out what had happened, I really wanted to go back and listen or read that Greek chorus again for the clues.
It's sort of like a whodunit, but you don't know what was even done.
Yeah, it was like that. Look, I mean, the writing style I thought was terrific, and I've got to say, I was turning the pages. I couldn't put it down. I virtually read it in one sit, but it was the ending, how she tidied everything up to an inch of its life at the end.
Didn't do it for you.
That didn't do it for me. Because I thought that was a way out.
One of the cleverest things about it.
Wow.
You put it down and you go, how the hell did she actually do it?
Tidy everything up.
That was how I thought about it as well, because there are so many little red herrings and you think, oh, she's tied this little bit off, and then something else, and you go, oh, hang on, but what about?
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the storylines and some of the characters, right? And let's talk about how convincing the characters were. Okay, so we'd start with, who did we meet first? Jane, probably, and her little boy Siggy, right? And so for those of you that don't know, she's moved from an area and she's coming to a new area. She's a single mum and she's got a little boy called Siggy. And her first encounter with the preschool is that Ziggy, her little boy, who would have been, 5, has bullied another child.
Is accused of bullying another child. That's right. So what did we think of Jane as a character? She's very young and she's a lot younger than the other mums in the book.
Well, the fact that Jane is a lot younger gives her that sort of slightly distanced perspective. So that's why she's able to observe it the way that she does.
Yeah.
And we can sort of see it from her point of view because she's the outsider in that situation.
Yeah, and I thought she was she was really convincing to me. I bought Jane's story. What I didn't buy, and we can talk about that a bit later on, what I didn't buy about Jane was all the traumas I bought, but the relationship with the guy at the cafe. I thought that was just another little tidy up at the end because everybody had to be happy at the end.
Well, we saw that coming, but it was fun.
Yeah, I didn't. Sometimes I think I'm dumb when
You
it comes
did not
to...
see that coming?
There are things like that I didn't see. Or maybe
I knew he wasn't gay.
I knew he wasn't gay.
there's always the guy that everyone thinks is gay.
Right, okay. So Jane's in this, she's come to this new community, she's single mum,
24 years old.
24 years old, and she's befriended by some of the other school mums, mainly Madeline and Celeste, is that right?
And Madeline, who is living with her second husband, she has two children from the second husband and a teenage daughter from the first husband, who's also got a child at the school with his second wife.
That is hilarious. That's where the humour comes in. I thought that was quite funny. But before we go on, we're going to take a question. We've got some comments. And please, this is Book Club. It's Better Reading Live Book Club. I'm sitting here with Lachlan Jobbins and the lovely Kelly Doust, who is the author of a new book called Precious Things. And we're talking about Big Little Lies about Liane Moriarty. Now listen, this is live. This is straight down the barrel to you at home. And I hope you've got yourself a drink, because we do. And we would love to take questions via Facebook comments. So, do we have a question?
Yvonne mentions that the parents are sadly familiar helicopter parents. Do you agree?
Without a doubt, Yvonne. I absolutely do think that almost all the parents, probably not so much Madeline, I thought, but I think all the parents to me came across as helicopter parents. The onus on the child was driving me crazy. But I think because I came from a family of 6 in working class Sydney, and my mother didn't have time to helicopter parent any of us. We were just like, anything goes.
Maybe it's a generational thing.
Maybe it is.
I feel like I work from home, and I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I very much identified with some of the dads.
Did you?
Absolutely.
Right. Somebody asked me the other night at dinner when I was saying that I was reading Big Little Lies, who did I identify with the most in terms of characters? I think Madeline, for me, was probably somebody I identified with the most.
Okay.
Madeline for me as well, I think.
Todd? Lockie, sorry.
Look, I'm not going to say Perry.
Please don't say Perry.
No, look, there wasn't a particular male character that I identified, but they were certainly
but
familiar.
Any women in the parenting style that you identified with?
Yeah, I think Madeline for sure.
Madeline, yeah. I think Madeline's story with Abigail, with the teenager, oh my God, it was heart-wrenching for me, and I felt that was very real. Yeah. Do we have another, we're going to take another question?
Yeah, Kerry and a few others ask if the ending was too neat and tidy.
Oh, Kerry, I totally agree. That's exactly how I felt. I felt that the ending was too neat and too tidy. And I was a little bit disappointed how everything was wrapped up. Let's get on to the domestic violence, because I thought she wrote that very, very well. It was so sinister and so convincing. Spoilers for those watching. And I've got to tell you, one of my favourite scenes in the book is when Perry comes home. So Perry's married to Celeste, and they've got twin boys. And he comes home, and this is the domestic violence. He comes home one day, and and I don't know about you guys, but domestic violence for me has always struck me as being really outwardly violent, but he was that,
Yeah.
but it was also a low level kind of anger and violence that you would think, is this domestic violence or is it not? And this one particular scene which just moved me to my core was when Perry came home and the Lego was, do you remember that? And the Lego was all over the carpet, and he questioned her about the Lego. He picked all the Lego up and then he tipped the Lego right overhead, and that to me was like, oh my God, you know, that was seriously, how could that happen? And my heart bled for her, actually. I thought that the domestic violence issues were written really well and handled really well. I just thought
it was very sensitively done, and you got these two characters who were obviously very good at lying to themselves and to each other about what their relationship was. And it was, just about the ending. I didn't feel it was too neat at all.
No.
I guessed who the bully was.
Can we talk about?
But I had no idea until it happened who was going to die.
I found it really satisfying too.
Yeah.
I did, because I fell in love with the characters so much, and I knew something horrible had happened, and I didn't want it to be to any of those characters that I really loved. So I was really glad that it was.
And
Perry.
what about the person who actually does who causes the death?
Well, that's
that's
fine. Let's talk about
Without
her.
spoilers.
But do you know what I think? For me, I think with Perry and Celeste, that domestic violence is so common and it's so insidious, and it is in so many walks of life. And I really like how she positioned this domestic violence incident or a situation, but it never ends in that person going away. That doesn't happen in real life, and that's why I was disappointed.
That was the only way they could. That it could be ended
tied up
so neatly, and I guess that's one could say that, but
she had already made the decision to leave though, and she set up the apartment, so I felt that was resolved in that way.
Right.
Yeah, but the way it happened, I thought there were so many things about this book that could have been pushed just a bit too into the realm of kind of cliche or just sort of impossible, but she pulled back.
I think they were pushed to the impossible. Nothing ties up. Life doesn't tie itself up at the end. It's not neat and tidy.
But it's also a farce. So I think that you're allowed to have those extremes.
Yeah,
because you're writing fiction.
Have we mentioned how funny it is?
Oh yeah, we've got to talk about
that's
that.
The thing.
Before we get onto that, shall we take another question?
Naomi asks if Madeline was too obsessed with Nathan and Bonnie.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think that was such a tough situation for Madeline, but I had such a soft spot for her. And to have your ex-husband and his wife and the daughter in your neighbourhood, and the little girl is in the same school as her little boy, tough. Yeah. I thought that was really tough. And, I thought...
know what he was doing there.
Really, what was he doing there? Go and live in another suburb. Send your kid to another school. I really felt for Madeline. I
really related to her. Sort of, she's 40 when the book begins. No. She's turning 40 on that day. It's her birthday at the orientation.
I know.
And there's, the new wife, and she's all zen and into yoga, and then sort of whisks her daughter away.
She was quite humorous.
Yeah, so I felt for her.
I really loved that relationship. Do you know who I really liked and I thought was a calming background to the whole book was Madeline's husband. I've forgotten his name. What was Madeline's husband's name?
I can't remember his name.
But I thought he was really calming.
Ed.
Ed, the journalist.
He was great. I really liked him. Shall we take another question?
Yeah, Beth asks, how do you think the HBO series that's in production now will be?
Okay.
Oh, I've got an opinion on this.
Have you? Okay. Shall we fill our community in? So what's happened is Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman have bought the rights, the film and TV rights to the book. Lucky Liane Moriarty, and they're making a TV series out of it with HBO. And the starring characters are, there's a plethora of them, but I can only remember that Nicole is playing Celeste, which I think is perfect casting.
Except I'm a bit concerned about her age.
Maybe, okay. And Madeline is played by Reese Witherspoon.
Which is closer.
I see that. Yeah.
Did you see that? I didn't see that in Madeline. I really didn't.
Yeah.
But Reese, doesn't she see herself as a mum of
Yes, and she is. Yeah, I guess so. But, you know, I'm looking forward to it. You're not? He's going to stick to the book.
Yeah,
I think it'll be brilliant.
Yeah.
I think HBO do such a good job,
They do,
and
yeah,
I think
they
with
do.
all
I
those
just can't
people,
see Nicole as Celeste for some reason.
Really?
just can't
I
see
think
it.
that's great casting because she is meant to be a woman who is affluent in a sense. She's she's beautifully presented, that's Nicole. She's wearing all the designer gear. I could see that. I could less see Reese as Madeline actually. But, you know, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I can't remember the other actors.
Don't wait for the series.
No,
though.
don't
Read
wait
the
for the
book.
series. Read the book first. And like we always, I mean, the book is always better. We know that. The book is better. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. In this case.
I think it'll be great though. All of those people that are weighing in, I think I can see in a series it'll cut to those people, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Totally. The Greek chorus is going to be brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
The little talk to camera. It's going to be. It will be good.
I think it will be good. Shall we take another question? Have we got another question?
Susan asks, what made you choose this book?
Well, that's interesting. We've been talking about doing book club for some time. Our community have been asking for us. So it's Better Reading Book Club Live, and we're sitting on the lounge with Lachlan Jobbins and Kelly Doust, and I'm Cheryl Arkle. So we started searching. We're all great readers in the Better Reading team, and two of the team had read it and loved it. I hadn't read it at the time that they decided we're going to go with it, so they said, Cheryl, read it and see what you think. And I read it, and I didn't love it as much as Lizzie and Beth did, but we decided what a great book club it is then. If we don't all agree, that's fine. But once we put it out there to our community, everybody was very happy to be talking about it, and I don't think there was a negative comment about the book. And I'm not being negative either. I mean, I really did enjoy reading it. I just was a little bit disappointed how at the end every problem was tidied up. And I just kind of thought, that's really just not the way that we live our lives. But maybe I'm a realist, and maybe I should be reading non-fiction.
It depends how you go to a book, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And why you go to a book. And I think it was really satisfying if you're just looking for a fun, light read. But it also had a lot of depth there that was handled with a really light touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, listen, this is our book, as you know. It's Big Little Lies. Liane's got several books out. She has sold, I think, her total combined sales have been 6 million. TV and film rights sold, as we said. She's got a new book coming out in July. But what I want to talk about now and what I want to introduce is what we're going to talk about next month. And we're going to talk about, and I'm going to try not to give away how I feel about this book, but you probably know already, Lockie. Next month, our book club book is going to be My Brilliant Friend by Eleanor Ferrante. It's one of 4, I think, at the moment, a 5th to come. It's one of, I think, the best books written in some time. It's Italian, and I'm giving a little bit away already about how I feel about it. It's written by Eleanor Ferrante is Italian, and it's translated into English beautifully. Has anyone read it yet?
I haven't, but I've
read
heard
all
lots about it. Yeah.
Well, do
It's on
yourself
my
a
list.
favour. Get yourself a copy of My Brilliant Friend, and we're going to discuss it next month. Okay, well, I think that wraps us up for the day, for the night. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, Lockie Jobbins. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us on the lounge. This is it. This is Better Reading Book Club Live. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for participating in the conversation. And I'm Cheryl Arkle, and I'm going to say good night. See you next time.